Have you ever wondered how a single document could spark a religious revolution? This is the story of Martin Luther, a German monk and theologian who shook the foundations of the Catholic Church and ignited the flames of the Reformation in the early 16th century. Born into a modest family, Luther's life took a significant turn when he survived a close brush with death during a thunderstorm. He vowed to become a monk, a promise he kept despite his father's objections. His deep immersion into monastic life, however, didn't bring him the peace he sought. Instead, it led to an escalating dissatisfaction with the Church's practices, particularly the sale of indulgences, payments believed to reduce punishment for sins. In October 1517, Luther made a bold move. He drafted a document known as the 95 Theses, a pointed critique of the Church's practices. This wasn't just an academic exercise, it was a public challenge, a call to debate. The Theses questioned the Church's authority to grant indulgences and criticized the notion that salvation could be bought or sold. But Luther didn't stop there. He purportedly nailed this document to the door of the castle church in Wittenberg, Germany, a common practice of the time for inviting scholarly debate. However, this act became a symbolic gesture of defiance against the Church. The 95 Theses, written in Latin, were quickly translated into German and spread throughout Europe thanks to the newly invented printing press. This audacious act marked the beginning of an era. Luther's critique resonated with many who had grown weary of the Church's corruption and the sale of salvation. His challenge to the Church's authority was a beacon of hope to those yearning for a faith that aligned more closely with their understanding of the Scriptures. And so, with the hammering of a nail, the seeds of the Reformation were sown. A single document had sparked a revolution that would forever change the religious, political, and cultural landscape of Europe. This was the dawn of the Reformation. But how did a local dispute in a small German town become a pan-European movement? You may wonder. Well, the answer lies in the transformative power of technology. The printing press, a relatively new invention in Luther's time, played a pivotal role in spreading his revolutionary ideas across Europe. It was a game changer, a social media of the 16th century, if you will. Luther's 95 Theses, a document challenging the Catholic Church's practices, particularly the sale of indulgences, was quickly reproduced on these printing presses and disseminated far beyond the boundaries of Wittenberg. Copies of his work found their way into the hands of scholars, theologians, and the general public across the continent, sparking widespread discussion and debate. But it wasn't just the medium that made Luther's message so compelling. It was the message itself. Luther's theology focused on two central beliefs: sola fide, or faith alone, and sola scriptura, or scripture alone. Sola fide was a radical concept that challenged the established doctrine of the Church. It proposed that faith alone, not good deeds or purchasing indulgences, was the key to salvation. This struck a chord with many who felt the Church had strayed from its spiritual roots, becoming overly concerned with wealth and power. Sola scriptura, on the other hand, posited that the Scripture was the ultimate authority in matters of faith. It proposed that every Christian should have direct access to it, a radical departure from the Church's control over religious texts. This democratization of spirituality offered a sense of empowerment and independence to the common believer. These beliefs resonated with the masses, who were growing increasingly disillusioned with the corruption and excesses of the Church. Luther's call for a more personal, less institutionalized form of Christianity appealed to their desire for change. Luther's ideas were out, and there was no going back. The stage was set for a revolution that would reshape the religious landscape of Europe and beyond. In the wake of Luther's challenge, who else stepped onto the religious battlefield? As the 16th century unfolded, other influential figures emerged, contributing to the momentum of the Reformation. Among them were John Calvin in Switzerland and Huldrych Zwingli in Zurich. John Calvin, a French theologian and pastor, played a significant role in the development of the system of Christian theology later called Calvinism. His teachings emphasized the sovereignty of God, the authority of the Scriptures, and the necessity of grace through faith. Calvin's Institutes of the Christian Religion became a foundational document for Reformed churches worldwide. Meanwhile, in Zurich, Huldrych Zwingli challenged the Catholic Church's teachings, focusing on the absolute authority of the Bible. Zwingli's ideas on the Eucharist, or communion, differed from both Luther and the Catholic Church, leading to the first significant split within the Protestant movement. As these reformers voiced their interpretations of Christianity, a myriad of Protestant denominations began to take shape. Each sect offered a different take on Christian doctrine, reflecting the unique views of their founders. This diversity of belief systems marked a significant departure from the uniformity of the Catholic Church. These developments had far-reaching implications for Western Christianity. The monolithic authority of the Catholic Church was splintered, and a new era of religious pluralism was ushered in. As a result, the power dynamics between rulers and the Church began to shift. Monarchs and political leaders, who had once bowed to the authority of the Church, now had the opportunity to align themselves with the burgeoning Protestant movement or maintain allegiance to the Catholic Church. This period also saw the dissolution of monasteries and the establishment of new churches and religious institutions. The Reformation was not just a spiritual revolution, but a socio-political one, disrupting centuries-old structures and traditions. The religious landscape of Europe was being redrawn, and the battle lines were becoming clearer. The Reformation had moved beyond Martin Luther's initial protest, evolving into a widespread movement that would irrevocably alter the course of European history. What happens when deep-seated beliefs clash and religious tensions boil over? The Reformation was not merely a religious phenomenon, it was a socio-political earthquake that shook the very foundations of Europe. In the wake of the Reformation, religious wars erupted, particularly the devastating 30 Years' War. This war, primarily fought in Central Europe, was one of the longest, most destructive conflicts in European history. It began in 1618 and ended in 1648. It started as a war between Protestant and Catholic states in the fragmented Holy Roman Empire. However, it gradually developed into a broader conflict involving a host of European powers. The war resulted in the death of millions, with casualties from battle, famine, and disease. The religious divide and the ensuing wars also catalyzed profound social and political changes. As the authority of the Catholic Church dwindled, power dynamics shifted. Rulers began to assert more control over religious affairs within their territories. The Peace of Westphalia, which ended the 30 Years' War, established a principle of religious tolerance and reaffirmed the right of rulers to determine the religion of their states. Simultaneously, the Reformation prompted the establishment of new churches and religious institutions. As people broke away from the Catholic Church, they formed new Protestant denominations, each with its own interpretation of Christianity. These included the Lutheran, Calvinist, and Anglican churches, among others. Moreover, the Reformation led to the dissolution of monasteries across Europe, further weakening the Catholic Church's economic power. The wealth and lands previously held by the monasteries were often seized by the state or by individuals, leading to a significant redistribution of wealth. In essence, the Reformation was a seismic shift that forever altered the religious, social, and political landscape of Europe. It was a time of turmoil and transformation, a period of conflict and change. The Reformation was more than a religious revolution. It was a catalyst for change on a grand scale. How did the Catholic Church react to this unprecedented challenge to its authority? This is the question that loomed large in the wake of the Reformation, and the answer lies in an important event known as the Council of Trent. The Catholic Church, in response to the criticisms and widespread influence of the Reformation, convened the Council of Trent. This was a series of meetings that took place over 18 years, from 1545 to 1563. It was here that the Church reaffirmed its traditional teachings, pushing back against the rising tide of Protestantism. The Council of Trent tackled some of the most contentious issues that the Reformation had brought to light. The sale of indulgences, a key grievance of Martin Luther, was strictly regulated. The Church also clarified its stance on salvation, asserting the necessity of both faith and good works, in contrast to Luther's doctrine of salvation through faith alone. But it wasn't just about refuting the Reformers' ideas. The Council also sought to address corruption within the Church, striving for a much-needed internal reform. This included stricter regulations on the moral conduct of the clergy and the enforcement of a more rigorous education for priests. Despite these attempts at reconciliation and reform, the divide between Catholicism and Protestantism had already grown too deep to bridge completely. The Council of Trent did succeed in revitalizing the Catholic Church and stemming the flow of converts to Protestantism. But it couldn't erase the profound impact the Reformation had on the religious landscape of Europe. The Reformation sparked a shift in power dynamics, challenged established doctrines, and led to the creation of new religious institutions. This period of intense religious upheaval and transformation left a lasting imprint on European society, influencing everything from politics to culture. The Reformation left an indelible mark on Europe, shaping its religious, political, and cultural contours for centuries to come. It's a testament to the enduring power of ideas and the profound impact they can have when they challenge the status quo.